Hello, Mrs. Bradley here, and today's video is going to explain to you how to answer the "How far do you agree?" question, which features on two papers. It features under the medicine section on paper 1, and it features under the Elizabeth Tudor depth section on paper 2. This question needs you to show off your knowledge and ability to present a two-sided argument and a final conclusion supported. It is worth 20 marks in total. 4 of those marks will be for spelling, punctuation and grammar. 16 will be for your knowledge, your ability to present arguments and your conclusion. The example question we are going to look at involves the statement, "The role of the church was the main reason why there was so little change in medicine in the Middle Ages." The question wants you to consider the topic, the Middle Ages, the factor, the role of the church, and the rate of progress, which in this instance is so little change. These questions will always give you two suggestions for which you could include. Here we have the church and education. You do not have to use these if you do not know about them, but you must include some information of your own if you are going to use these as well. Now, when considering the question, if we are going to use the factors that the question has suggested in looking at why there was so little progress in medicine, the church and education, then we need to think about what other knowledge we could include so we could reach the top marks in level 4. And as you can see, we could include Galen from that time period and his influence, the government and that influence, and we could look at the influence of the respect for tradition in that time period. We will explore the knowledge for all of these factors in the next few slides. Your answer will need 3 parts. Part 1 will argue, yes, the church was the main reason and will agree with the statement. Part 2 will disagree and provide other arguments. And Part 3 will be your conclusion. This slide will tackle the yes argument that the church was the main reason why there was so little change in medicine in the Middle Ages. And we will start with that one because it is the statement provided by the question. A good way to start is by using a key sentence starter that focuses on the question. If you look to the right here, you'll be able to see one. On the one hand, the church had a great influence over medicine in the Middle Ages. This shows focus on the question and which argument you will be pursuing. To support your point, you will need 2 to 3 reasons coming from your own knowledge and revision. Looking at the box on the left, there are some provided for this presentation. 1. The idea that the church had a major influence on people's ideas. God was responsible for diseases, so why question? 2. The idea that people were afraid of damnation in hell, and questioning God meant you would be punished in hell. 3. The idea that the church supported the ideas of Galen, and therefore if anybody questioned Galen, they would be questioning God. And finally, education was dominated by religion. Physicians' training was dominated by it, and therefore physicians were told not to question their work. This slide demonstrates a peel structure for a paragraph. Your points focus on the question, your side of the argument. On the one hand, the church had a great influence over medicine in the Middle Ages. Your evidence, this is where your knowledge will come in, where you give ideas about why the church was influential and the impact it had. This explanation part is absolutely key. You need to make sure you explain the impact of the church on medicine in the Middle Ages. And finally, you'll need a finishing sentence that links back to the question. Use the terms of the questions, like we have here, to refer back. Therefore, the church was one of the main reasons why there was little progress in medicine in the Middle Ages. This slide is all about how to present the other side of the argument. Remember, you've been presented with a statement. The church was the main reason. How far do you agree? We've given our reasons for why we agree. Now we need to give our reasons for why we disagree. This section here shows you a sentence starter you can use for part 2 in your answer. On the other hand, the church was not the only reason why there was little progress in medicine in the Middle Ages. Again, you will need knowledge to support this side of the argument, 2 to 3 reasons to support it, and for the sake of this presentation, we have provided the red box on the right with some ideas of what you could do. Whilst we've used Galen on the other side of the argument, we can use him and Hippocrates as scientists alone to explain why medicine didn't change in the Middle Ages. Their evidence at the time seemed to be correct, the theory of the 4 humours was believable, and their book somehow seemed to cover everything. Their ideas seemed logical and reassuring. If you were sick, there seemed to be some logic. In the theory of opposites to cure people, it seemed rational. The government in the Middle Ages also did little or nothing to support the progress of medicine. They focused their money on the defence of the country and occasionally paid for towns to be clean, but no taxes were collected to spend money on finding medical breakthroughs. We have gone through knowledge, sentence starters, how to structure your question, and this page is about how to use some key terms to really ram home the idea of there being little progress or connectives to help you analyse the factor. There are some words here that help to show why progress didn't happen in the Middle Ages. Hindered, impeded, obstructed. Connectives that help you to analyse. Consequently, as a result, this led to. There are some sentence starters below these words. You may pause the video and have a read. You can use these in your answer. You need to include a conclusion in your answer. It is a very important part of your answer, and if you do not include one, you will lose vital marks. Your conclusion must have a viewpoint that must be given, a judgment on the question. Was the church the main reason why there was so little change in the Middle Ages? Say how far you agree. Most importantly, you need to support this with your strongest evidence. Here is an example of a conclusion you could give for this question. In this instance, it's clear that the church was the main reason. Here will be your points. I agree with the statement that the church was the main reason why there was little change in the Middle Ages in medicine. Then you will need to support it with evidence and analysis. While the government did not support the process of medicine, the church was the organisation that had the greatest influence on medical progress. It supported the work of Galen at the time and made sure that no one questioned his work or the belief that God was the reason for disease. People were extremely religious in the Middle Ages, and the influence of the church and the threat of hell prevented people from challenging beliefs. This gives a viewpoint, but most importantly summarises in an analytical way why it believes that. This is an example of the mark scheme provided by the exam board for this question. Remember, it's 20 marks in total, including spelling, punctuation and grammar. Level 1 answer is simple, lacking focus on the question, and does not have a judgment in the end. Level 2, the knowledge is a little bit better. Some of it will be accurate. There will be some but limited analysis, and there will be a judgment, but there will be no information to support it. Level 3, much better knowledge. It will be good. There will be some analysis, some directed at the question, mainly directed at the question, and there will be a judgment with some justification, but not fully focused. Level 4, fully analytical throughout with their explanations. They are consistently focused on the question, and the information is not just accurate but is wide-ranging, and the judgment will not only give the judgment, but it will fully explain in an analytical way why they've come to that judgment. Finally, a really big part of revision is to prepare for, plan and practice questions. If you are interested in looking at how to tackle different types of questions on this how far particular one, it would be a good idea for you to go onto Firefly, History, Edexcel 9-1, and if you have a look under there you will find a tab for medicine exam questions, and the third one will be the how far question with lots of examples and some more ideas of how you could answer those.